I switched to Pro Tools. If you record yourself or others, chances are you'll agree with me saying that your DAW of choice is a very personal one, right? Everyone's different. Everyone has different needs, tastes, and functionality involved. I spent the last 13 years in Logic, and I recently switched over to Pro Tools, and I wanted to kind of talk about my thought process behind the switch. And before we go any further, this video is made possible by the fine folks over at Sweetwater, who have all of the things that you need to record yourself no matter what DAW you are using. They have microphones, guitars, amplifiers, creator cameras. They got it all. I will link down below in the description. All thoughts and opinions in this video are mine. So back in 2010, I remember feeling very kind of overwhelmed even then by the sheer amount of choices for recording software, but also physical interfaces. And I didn't really understand for a long time how those two are kind of forever linked, right? Because the interface is basically the heart of any setup, large or small. And to that end, I started out in Reaper. In Reaper, it was 3.1, I believe. And I cut my teeth there, and I really found it uncomfortable, and I never quite got used to Reaper, although I loved the form and the support that came from that user base. It was very, very beneficial for me at that time. Ultimately, I switched to Logic, where I basically stayed on and off for the last 13, 14 years. Now, in that time, I did dabble in other DAWs. I spent a little bit of a stint in Cubase. I spent about a year in PreSonus Studio One. I also, because of the tour life, spent some time in Ableton as well. I am always curious and am trying new things. However, I have always maintained that your DAW of choice doesn't really matter if you're staying in your own work ecosystem. And what I mean by that is if you're working on your own stuff and you're doing stuff that's primarily under your control, you should use whatever you feel is best, because honestly, most DAWs these days are very, very capable. Now that mindset has gotten me very, very far. However, as my career kind of is transitioning or growing and expanding into working with other bands, producing, and also finding myself many times in the last year being in other people's studios, not even commercial studios, I'm talking about just using other people's setups. 9 times out of 10, I am faced with having to sit down at a Pro Tools rig, and then ultimately I have to sheepishly ask, do you have Logic or Studio One or something? Anything else? And I hate that. I hate having to be the guy who's, you're the professional, asked to use a not standard DAW. And I finally was in that situation again for the last time. And I thought, you know what? Let's embrace being uncomfortable. Let's embrace change, and let's just dive into it. Why not? And that's exactly what I did. I have dove in. I have been watching nonstop tutorials and bugging all of my audio friends, specifically Jason Lackey, who you guys have seen on this channel before. He helped me build my compact Euro in-ear rig. He has been extremely helpful and has been very patient with me and my ridiculously silly questions in some cases. It's been a lot of fun, honestly. So let's talk about some differences, some key differences that I noticed right off the bat, and there were a few, that are different from Logic going to Pro Tools. Well, Pro Tools is set up like a physical console, right? It was originally meant to be a bridge to transition into the digital world for people coming from the physical world, all right? So it is set up and its audio flow is very much that of a physical console. Now, a lot of us have never spent any time with a console. I have worked on a console a couple of different times. I am by no means a SSL aficionado or anything like that, all right? I understand the channel strips, and I know how to, bring compressors and EQs in and out and things like that. But beyond that, consoles really aren't my thing. However, I understand how the audio flows through them, and that in and of itself has been an absolute brain twister for me. So with busing, Logic, you basically just send your audio to the track that you want it to go to. Whereas Pro Tools, acting like, mirroring a physical world, you send the audio to predetermined, pre-existing buses, and then you pull the audio down to whatever tracks you want it to go to, however many tracks you want it to be. You don't create sends to go to tracks, you create sends to go to buses, and then bring the audio down via auxiliary input track. Yeah, it's been nice though. I get it now, but at first I was like, what? The other major difference that I've noticed, and I just found this out the hard way literally 2 days ago, is on your Master Fader and Pro Tools, your plugins are post-fader. Okay, so when you turn down your Master Fader, you are actually turning down the trim and gaining down the feed going into the inserts and the plugins you may have on your master bus. In Logic, it doesn't work that way. Your master bus is essentially the last track in the entire chain, but it essentially acts like a regular track for all intents and purposes. Pro Tools, that is not so, which I bounced a mix literally yesterday and thought, something's weird, what is going on here? Yeah, that was it. Now let's talk about some things I really like about Pro Tools. I really like the fact that there is direct company support and there's tutorials. With Logic is this faceless thing, and you never know when an update's gonna come. You never know if a particular feature is gonna get added. There is no official Apple tutorials or demos around Logic. Those don't exist. Yes, there is a wonderful community making tutorials around Logic. However, with Pro Tools, it's been really nice having the infrastructure from official Avid tutorials about how to do the basic stuff when you're new to Pro Tools. That has been a huge help for me. The second thing I am really stoked with Pro Tools about is now I'm using a program that is utilizing all of the cores of my computer. I run an M2 Mac Studio Pro, or Mac Studio Ultra, excuse me. It's a very robust computer. However, with Logic, Apple has it so it does not use the efficiency cores whatsoever, which hasn't necessarily been a problem. I've come close a few times, but that's stupid. I hate that. I hate that they do that. Also with Logic, the master bus only uses one core. So if you've maxed that out, you're toast. I don't have to worry about that with Pro Tools. I am using the breadth of power that is available on my machine. It feels like I got a new computer, real talk. Let's talk about some things that I don't necessarily like about Pro Tools. It's not a perfect, there's no such thing as a perfect DAW. However, I wish your subscription granted you the ability to be on two machines. Yes, I know it's iLok. However, I don't want to take my dongle everywhere. I don't want to risk losing my dongle if I'm flying over to Europe, for example. I want to be able to put my license on, not on the cloud, but use my MacBook as a second key, as a second installation license location. Like you can for many, many plugins that typically will give you 3 activations. I wish I could put Pro Tools on my M3 and not use the cloud. Now, I have accepted, I have to bring a dongle, so I got a separate dongle and with the Pro Tools on it to bring back and forth between my 2 machines. Fine. But, Slate, I'm also looking at you. 1 machine? Give me 2 machines. The second thing I don't really like about Pro Tools is in Logic and just about every other DAW I've ever used, you can select multiple channels and then move multiple faders with 1 click. Seems kind of intuitive, right? You cannot do that in Pro Tools. 1 fader at a time, unless you want to control them via VCA, which I understand I can do. I just don't want to do it in the moment. I just want to select my guitars, for example, right? My 4 tracks of guitars and bring them all down, feeding into the bus, as an example. Can't do that. Unless you can. Again, I'm new to this, so let me know if I can do that. But overall, I am left feeling excited about learning something new, but being able to walk into a studio and just be like, yep, I'm good to go here, and to be able to work. I want to be able to get to work. That is why I have switched to Pro Tools. I am super excited about it, guys. Yes, it's a paid subscription coming from a one-time buy from Logic. However, with that money, you do get a lot of support. There's also an entire community built around people being really good at Pro Tools. And it's such a widely used tool, pun intended, that I don't know, I feel like there's nothing I can't really do or achieve because I'm probably not the first person to come into this issue or thing that I want to do. And that feels good. Also, I have a studio session in like 2 weeks, and I'm gonna show up to that studio session and I'm just gonna get to work using the studio's Pro Tools rig. I am really, really excited to do that. That's it. That's all I really had, guys. I wanted you to think about the tools that you use. I wanted you to think about the DAW that you use. What DAW do you use? Comment down below. Tell me what you work out of and why. I am so curious to hear everyone's reasons for working in what they do, because we all have different tastes, and that's what makes this world wonderful. All the pickable links down below in the description. You've been wonderful. I've been Fluff. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.